reconcile that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult journey.
Yeah.
Because growing up, you know, like, I remember when I was about also 10, 11, I turned to my dad and I told him, is this my stepmother? And my dad turned and told me, no, this is your mother. I told him, are you really sure? Because I cannot imagine like a mother being like this. And then when I look at my life, actually, I lost the attachment. You know, when we are talking about trauma, kids going through trauma, we have developmental trauma that comes out when the mother is not equipped to handle the child.
Right.
You understand? So when that attachment is not properly formed, there's attachment trauma, and there's a lot of now research on attachment trauma.
Yes.
So you'll have a lot of challenges in relationship. You can be anxious, avoidant, insecure. So these are things that I didn't even know ailed me. And then another thing also, I was suffering from abandonment trauma. Because at one point along this journey, my mother left us with our dad. She dumped us with our dad and took our youngest brother, and she left us for some time. When she came back, she told me, you know, we should be grateful that she's back. So I grew up feeling grateful that I cannot even complain. So that people-pleasing habit comes in, and codependency. You shrink to survive in this kind of environment. You lose your sense of self, you understand? And then you have deep abandonment trauma. You hold on to people, even some relationships are not good for you. You're just holding on. You cannot let go because of this kind of wounds, you understand? And I didn't even know all these things. So along the way, now let me talk about that background. So I tended to focus on school and to minimize interactions with my mother. And my father being present, he kind of protected me because he saw these two are not getting along. So the brunt of my mother's brutality, I felt it when my father died. So my father died August 19th. And then, you know, by September, October, we are sitting for the national exams. Let me tell you something. That's when I came to appreciate my father's presence in my life. Immediately my father died, I came back. I remember during the funeral, I tried to hug my mother. She pushed me with so much force that I felt embarrassed. I was going to my mom to look for a hug, to look for comfort. So growing up also, there was no love. There was no that... you know, even like we just used to greet her by her. So you grow up even lacking that emotional affection. You understand? So these kind of things, they really mess you up. You might look, you know, okay from the outside, but deep inside you're drowning. You understand? So from there now, I mean, like when my father died, now I went to school, I finished the exam. I was in a very precarious state, but somehow I managed to do the exam. I used to, during the day, I keep a very straight face. At night, I'm crying nonstop. My father appeared to me in a dream, and he told me, Zamzam, you will make it. Sit for the exam. I scored an A-. Wow. And I never studied. I was in such a, you know, I was actually a straight A student. But in the process, I messed up my physics practicals. I was just in 1 month, you know, you're coming from a funeral. The school is not even aware you've lost a parent. They've not taken you through counseling. You know, you're just on your own. And I just announced to a few of my classmates, during the holidays, I lost my dad, and life goes on. So also unprocessed grief. It took me 21 years, sort of 20 plus years to process that grief. I left home, by the way, 3 months after my father's death. After I finished KCSE, I came back home. Home was brutal. One incident happened where my mother, she attacked me with a wire, a radio wire. She hit me so badly on the face. I still have scars. You can see scars.
Yeah.
So from there, I think for me, that was it. I knew, like, you know, Zamzam, I mean, you've just lost your dad, and this is double, being orphaned twice. I mean, this home is not a place, this is no longer home for you. I left, I went to see a step uncle. I realized I could not stay there. I went to see another relative, I could not stay there. And then they realized, she looked for me, she realized I was there. I sent a message, I cannot come back to this home, like any other place but this place. So they started negotiating where to take me. A difficult child, you're being discussed the way you're a very difficult child. And growing up, she used to call me, in a Somali community, there's a word they use, asi, like disobedient caste child. And I used to wonder, why am I cursed? I'm a bright student. My father loves me. I mean, like, it's just unhealed trauma and pain that people carry, and they look for soft targets, some of them children, to pass that trauma to them. You understand?
Yes.
Later on, when I got a cell phone, I saved my mother as Home Safaricom. Home Safaricom. I could not save the name mother or mommy or Hoyo in Somali. That name Hoyo used to scare me because it used to trigger me, like trigger me back to the pain. And then these kind of things, you don't talk about them, because in our communities, when the perpetrator is your mother, then who are you going to turn to? I mean, mother is supposed to be nurturing. Mother is supposed to be everything. But mother is the abuser here. Mother is the one so brutal. Along the way, we just used to communicate like out of duty, but I had detached. So currently is when mediation talks were initiated by a very close family friend, because I reached out to him and I just said, historical injustices, because I call this historical injustice, has to be addressed. Like, why did my mother do this to me? Especially after having gone through therapy, after having understood what I went through. I mean, like, you know, I didn't deserve this. And I raised all the issues. I even asked, is it that I was ugly? Is it that I was unlovable? Is it that I was not worthy? So along the way also, you develop low self-esteem. And then mental health challenges as well that I suffered for so many years. You understand? Depression and anxiety because of all these things that happened.
So question, did your sisters go through the same?
So when you look at this kind of environments, when you talk about dysfunctional, toxic families, narcissistic abuse, different children go through different experiences. So for me, I've done a lot of study of family systems, internal family systems. I do a lot of research, by the way. I follow key pioneers in this kind of topics from the US. I was the scapegoated child. So I see, like, my firstborn sister was the golden child. She could not do any wrong. So for me, I was the scapegoated child. All problems, everything wrong in this family is attributed to me. So I've had to go through a lot of, and you know, when I went to my therapist, she told me, your mother is a narcissist, Zamzam. I told her, no, it cannot be. Mother is supposed to be mother. Mother is supposed to be loving, you know. But I've come to accept. So I've also broken this cycle of dysfunctional family, because I also realized along the way it was messing up with my mental health. And I had to enforce very strong boundaries and to stand up for myself and to disrupt this system that was there, and to make sure it ends with me. Sometimes abuse is in families. You understand? Family is not all glory and all lovey-dovey.
It's not what's sold.
It's not what's sold. So like for me, I've deliberately gone no contact with one sibling. Because now this person was just hell-bent to disrupt my life. And it had gotten to a point even I was suicidal. You know, this abuse, it drives you to a point where you're isolated, you're mocked, to a point now you start having suicidal thoughts.
Because you feel unworthy.
Unworthy, you're discarded. You understand?
Tell me about your daughter. So when all of this was going on, how and when did you get into a relationship?
So along the way now, you know, like once you leave home, you come live with relatives in Nairobi, you're trying to find your path in life. I remember even school fees was a problem. And my father had left enough for my fees. So I used to ask for my fees, I'm denied my fees. I cry for 3 consecutive days asking for my fees. Then I thought, why am I crying for fees? There's Higher Education Loans Board that pays for kids from poor families. I went, I applied. I got Higher Education Loans Board, it paid for my fees. That is how I survived. I stopped, you know, it gets to a point, you have to now take steps to stop crying and to stop being a victim and to do with what you have to do. So one of the scars that I have, when I was in second year, I went to my mother to ask for fees and she called me a tick.
Oh, tick.
Tick, a coupe. It's like, that thing really messed me up. That thing, I was on a self-destructive path during my university years. I could have actually committed suicide, or I could have used drugs. I was just a shell of myself. I'm somehow studying because I know this is what I have to do, but internally I'm hurting.
Broken.
I'm not okay. So along the way also you end up in very abusive relationship, one after the other, looking for external validation. And then now after I finished university, after I finished law school. I had suitors coming and going, but I knew I had to study.
Yeah.
So now the family arranged now my daughter's father, the marriage. He was a narcissist. This kind of thing actually, unless you heal, you'll keep on attracting the same patterns. So I was in a narcissistic marriage, short-lived. It only lasted 3 months. Out of it, I came out with a pregnancy for my daughter. I was a single mother from the time I carried my daughter.
Wow.
But it took me 5 years to get my divorce papers, because also I didn't want to come out into this community as a single mother.
Yes.
And I was building my career. I knew being in this kind of space, they were going to discriminate me as a single mother.
Oh.
I needed to feed my daughter.
Yeah.
I needed to put food on the table.
Yeah.
So I just kept hush. But this person kept on tormenting us. I underwent emotional abuse. I underwent financial abuse. That thing really messed up my mental health also. Now as my career was taking off now, the marriage was crumbling. Of course, whatever that, 3 months is nothing. But you see, we were kind of like portraying to society that we are a family, but we were actually not a family. We were not together.
No.
So I finally took my divorce papers.
Yes.
I hired a sick lawyer, Kalasinga, female lawyer. I told her, go and process for me my divorce papers. And coming from this kind of